Introduction. I have chosen to do my dissertation on how autism is represented in television. I have chosen this topic as I have autism myself, and I hope to write and direct TV shows in the future. I want to examine the representation that is already out there so I can create good examples myself. I reflected on my A1, where I decided to do an academic essay, and decided to change to a video essay as I felt showing the clips visually from the shows and interviews helped to reiterate my point much more effectively. To get an unbiased opinion on who were considered the good, bad, and controversial representations, I decided to do a survey. Before doing the survey, I was already deciding between a few characters that I would do my case studies on, but I wanted to get other people's takes on the characters to make sure I've chosen the best examples to showcase each type of representation. I used SurveyMonkey to create a 4-question survey. I then posted a link on Instagram and Facebook so that I could have a range of all demographics answering my survey, making it even more unbiased. Most of the results gave me the answers I was anticipating, which allowed me to feel the confidence that I was on the right track. Before I began researching the representation of autistic characters, I knew it was vital to have a full understanding of what autism actually is. Autism, or ASD, which is Autism Spectrum Disorder, is a lifelong disability that influences how the person reacts with and experiences the world. Autism is a spectrum, which means that each autistic person has a unique combination of traits, strengths, and challenges. I found this quote from the National Autistic Society that reads, "Being autistic means you feel things and react to them differently to non autistic people. You may find socializing confusing or tiring. You may become overwhelmed in loud or busy places. You may have intense interests, prefer order and routine, and use repeated movements or actions to calm yourself or express joy." The understanding of autism has changed a lot over the years. It used to be viewed as a straight line broken down into 3 levels of intensity, where one side meant you acquired a lot of support needs, and the other side meant you had almost no support needs. It is now considered more of a spectrum, where each autistic person has a unique combination and intensity of all of the traits. A famous quote that I think is very important to remember when writing autistic characters is from Dr. Stephen Shore, that quotes, "If you've met one person with autism, then you've just met one person with autism." In some of the shows I'll be discussing, the characters get referred to as having Asperger's. Asperger's was a term brought on by a Nazi called Hans Asperger. He studied autistic people and decided to split them into groups of how likely they were able to contribute to working. If they didn't have any learning disabilities, they were considered Asperger's. If they did, they were considered to be autistic and sent to their death. The word has a horrible ableist history and thus is no longer used as a diagnostic term. Now anyone with autism is simply considered autistic, regardless of their learning disabilities. The term was still used as a separate way to diagnose autistic people until around 2014, and some sources say as late as 2019. To compare how far TV has come with the representation of autistic characters, I wanted to see who the first character of autism ever was. I was pleasantly surprised to see that the very first autistic character was a girl. The character appears in just one episode of a crime show called Hawk. The episode Wall of Silence aired on the 22nd of December 1966. The plot summary of the episode is, when an autistic teenager is the sole witness to a cop killing, her mother tries to shield her from Lieutenant Hawk and the Slayer, who does not know that the girl cannot speak. The episode unsurprisingly has some outdated views on autism, but overall handles writing a non-verbal teenage girl with autism very well for such an old show. I will start on what the show did well with the representation. They had her be a very calm, timid girl, which doesn't lead to the fear-mongering like a lot of other representations have done. Her mother especially treats her with compassion and kindness, as do the other characters in the show. They mention even at one point that she attends a special school. This is great representation.
She goes to a special school. I talked to the director of the school, but very briefly.
What do you think?
A name. Autism.
Autism?
Lily Gilworth is autistic.
The problematic part of the episode is how they refer to her. They refer to her throughout the episode as being mentally ill, sick, and they call her the R-slur, but this was how it was medically referred to at the time.
She'll never be able to speak for herself. She's ill, I told you.
What does that mean? She's mentally retarded?
The worst part of the episode is when the kidnapper kisses her. She smiles naively, like she always does, and then kisses him back. It is clear to someone who understands autism that she was simply excited by something she'd never experienced before, and was trying to mirror what just happened by repeating the action. But to audience members that had no understanding prior of autism, they might think that this means autistic girls who are nonverbal are people who are easy to get with, as they would just comply. It is very sad, but unfortunately extremely common for nonverbal autistic people, especially women, to be sexually assaulted. I have a quote here: autistic youth are 3 to 4 times more likely than non-autistic youth to experience sexual victimization, and between 40% and 50% of adults report experiences of sexual abuse during childhood. When the rates of sexual assault are already so high with autistic women, we really can't afford to have any representation on TV where it seems like it's deemed okay for autistic women to be sexually assaulted. Before doing my survey, I had already decided on doing Sean Murphy from The Good Doctor as my example of bad representation. The results from my survey really backed up my decision, as the majority of responses were from people saying Sean Murphy from The Good Doctor. The Good Doctor aired from 2017 to 2024. On IMDb, it is described as Sean Murphy, a young surgeon with autism and savant syndrome, is recruited into the surgical unit of a prestigious hospital. Throughout the show, and in the interviews about the show, Sean Murphy is always referred to as having autism and is very rarely mentioned that he has savant syndrome as well. This leads to misinterpretation, as people watching the show believe that this is just how all autistic people act, rather than this is an example of one specific person with autism and savant syndrome. Savant syndrome is a rare condition in which persons with various developmental disorders, including autism, have an amazing ability or talent. Approximately 1 in 10 autistic people have savant skills, which shows that not every savant is autistic and that not every autistic person is a savant. This is an important clarification that the Good Doctor fails to mention.
The community, the autism community, must respond to you every time you go out. There's a mother, a father, a grandmother, a teacher that comes up to you to say, is it thank you? What is it?
The interviewer asked the actor that plays Sean Murphy, what do the parents and teachers and grandparents think of the autistic representation, not what do the autistic people themselves think of it, because they're not catering for autistic people, they're catering for the people in their lives who so-called have to deal with them. This is unfortunately very common in a lot of TV shows with autistic representation. The people most vocal about autism in media is normally the mothers of autistic children. It has become extremely normalized for mothers to post their children having a meltdown onto TikTok to gain sympathy and claim it's raising awareness, when in reality they're just scaring other parents who have potentially autistic kids. This is why representation is so vital. If we don't have good representation on TV, people will only be able to depend on random, uneducated people on the internet.
Genes played a role in my son's autism. I almost didn't make this video, but I'm tired of staying quiet. Because my answer is yes. Do I have science to back it up? I don't have any.
The Good Doctor is also seen as bad representation because of how the characters respond to Sean Murphy. The characters in the show act as a surrogate for the audience, guiding us in how we should feel or react to that situation, and when Sean Murphy has a meltdown, and he screams that I am a surgeon, he has responded with nothing. They just stare at him blankly, and act like he is the biggest weirdo in the world. This type of representation is awful, as non-autistic people will look at it and think that's exactly how they should react, especially since they are doctors and should be more empathetic and understanding. It's crazy that this is the way they respond. It's also horrible for autistic people watching the show to see that this will be the type of response they would get if they were to actually express how they feel to people that are supposed to care about them. The worst part of the Good Doctor's representation of autism is where they get all of their information from. It's an organisation called Autism Speaks. Autism Speaks is notoriously a very harmful organisation. They spread false information. They spread information about vaccines causing autism. They encourage restraining children on the ground, which has proven to be a very harmful method of calming someone. It leads to more anxiety and in some cases has led to children being extremely injured or even murdered. Autism Speaks also spent all of their money fundraising into making a horrendous advertisement explaining what autism means, but it's actually just fear-mongering.
I am autism. I work faster than pediatric AIDS, cancer, and diabetes combined. I am autism. I have no interest in right or wrong. I derive great pleasure out of your loneliness. I will fight to take away your hope. I will plot to rob you of your children and your dreams. I will make sure that every day you wake up, you will cry, wondering who will take care of my child after I die. And the truth is, I am still winning, and you are scared. And you should be. I am autism. You ignored me. That was a mistake.
This video that they made, which aired on TV for months, made autism seem like this terrifying, unbearable illness that kills people. It is insane to me that this organisation is the one most TV shows seem to go to when they're looking for someone to teach them about what autism means. Autistic representation in media is so important because if we're demonized in media, we're going to be demonized in real life. It is scarily common for untrained police officers to see an autistic person in public and get aggressive towards them because they're stimming, or the police officers asked the autistic person a question and they didn't respond because they're nonverbal. There are many cases where the police have shot or even killed them because they didn't have the official training on how to de-escalate a situation with an autistic person.
A 2017 study of New Jersey's first responders revealed that 23% of them have not had training in dealing with autism. And of those that had the training, 46% of them said that their training was not very effective.
Instead of paying funding towards training of police officers, instead they decided to pay their funds towards rebranding all of the police cars with Autism Speaks logos, further proving that they have not done the correct research, as Autism Speaks is once again not a good organisation to be associated with. When trying to decide who to use as an example of good autistic representation, I looked at my survey and an overwhelmingly positive response was towards the character Abba Nadir from Community. I think the main thing that makes Abed stand out from the other examples of autistic representation is that he just happens to be someone with autism. That is not the center point of the TV show. The TV show centers around a friend group of 7 quirky characters attending a community college, and Abed just happens to be one of those quirky friends. It makes a huge difference as well that the show wasn't created with the organization Autism Speaks. It was created by Dan Harmon, who has autism himself. Dan Harmon didn't set off to create a character with autism representation in mind. He just wanted to create a character that felt relatable to him, which indirectly meant that the character would end up having a lot of autistic traits.
I researched it, and then it just started sounding awful familiar. I started to discover that I had a lot more in common with with Abed than I did with Jeff.
Abed is referred to having Asperger's in the very first episode of the series.
Yeah? Yeah. Well, you have Asperger's.
This was a diagnostic term at the time. The character in the show, Jeff, is initially rude to Abed, but over the course of the show, they bond and become really good friends. The other characters in the show also really bond with Abed, and they never ostracize him or encourage him to mask his autistic traits to appear more neurotypical. Abed is one of the few autistic characters that is not a savant. He has a special interest in film and media, but he isn't perfect at making films. He is just really interested in them. In many shows, the friends and family members of the autistic person are someone that are seen to be sympathized with because dealing with someone with autism is supposed to be seen as super hard and difficult. I love the Community doesn't do that approach at all. There are brief moments where someone may struggle to understand Abed, but overall they don't treat him like he's difficult to be around. On the rare occasion that the characters don't understand Abed's point of view and end up having an outburst at him,
Then why didn't you leave? Because you asked me to stay and you said we were friends.
the issue is resolved very quickly and they apologize almost immediately. Unlike a lot of other shows where the audience is made to believe that the autistic person was the one that was in the wrong. Abed is not completely immune to being bullied, which is good to show that autistic people do experience bullying and get ostracized, but his own core friend group never ostracize him. They all stand up for him when they see he's being picked on.
Another muffin basket from another actress who wants to be in my next film.
Does that work?
Yep, Meryl Streep has 2 Oscars because of her baking. Oh, that's sarcasm, but I forgot to inflect. This sounds way more like sarcasm. Inflection is so interesting.
Abed, like a lot of autistic people, struggles to understand sarcasm and struggles to inflict the sarcasm correctly when he's making the joke himself. But he's still shown to be someone with a great sense of humour and is one of the funniest members of the group. He uses media to relate to his personal situations, which is extremely common with autistic people, as media can be a way for autistic people to learn social interactions. This is something that's almost never shown in other examples of autistic representations. Masking is also something that is almost never shown in media, so it's wonderful to see Abed showing examples of masking. When he is trying to be more charming and flirtatious to impress his friends, he mimics a famous character in a movie that is considered charming.
So you're familiar with 2 sins. How about a third?
What I like is that his masking is not encouraged. By the end of the episode, they realize that he's actually perfectly fine just the way he is.
Everybody wants me to be happy. Everybody wants to help me. But usually when they find out they can't, they get frustrated and stop talking to me, which I didn't want to happen with you guys, so I want to make sure that you felt like you could help me. The truth is, lots of girls like me because, let's face it, I'm pretty adorable.
Which is unfortunately extremely rare to see, as most of the time in shows such as Girl Meets World, where they think that their friend Varka may have autism, they force him instantly to mask everything that they think may be autistic about him.
The first one they mention is social awkwardness.
Check. You don't do anything awkward. Well, that's just something you do and you're gonna stop doing that.
This encodes to the viewers that autistic traits are something that should be demonized and covered up, and if you do have any of these traits yourself, you should be ashamed of them. The most controversial character that I'm going to be talking about is Sheldon Cooper. He is the most controversial one as he's never actually been confirmed to be autistic, so he's considered being coded. Developing a character with traits common to someone with autism without labeling them as having a disability is known as autistic coding. Autistic coding can be useful because it allows for the character in question to be well-rounded and multidimensional rather than being defined by their autism. Autistic coded characters tend to be represented with a broader range of personality traits, skills, idiosyncrasies, and complexities than characters who are explicitly written as autistic. Neurotypical people often complain that the characters weren't written to be autistic coded, they were just simply written to be weird and quirky. They don't like the idea that the character that they wrote to be silly and fun and relatable is actually being seen as good representation for autistic people. Autism has been so vilified that neurotypical people don't like that they relate to the same characters as autistic people. I will first discuss young Sheldon. He is seen as a better representation of autism. Even though it's the same character, he's been treated much better as a child, and the writing is a lot more sympathetic towards him because of that. The creators of Young Sheldon and The Big Bang Theory claim that he's never been intended to be autistic. If people see him that way, then that's on them. The Big Bang Theory ran from 2007 to 2019, and Young Sheldon ran from 2017 to 2024, so altogether they had 19 years creating this character, Sheldon Cooper, who they claim was never intended to be autistic, even though they gave him every single trait. I fail to see how that was an accident. Sheldon is seen to be highly intelligent, but constantly misunderstands social cues. He gets overwhelmed by loud environments, and he has very black and white literal thinking.
Go Wolves.
What?
You're a cheerleader, and by saying go Wolves, I'm initiating a conversation about something that interests you.
Are you one of those special ed kids?
My mom says I'm special. Would you like to be friends?
I don't think so.
These are all clear signs of someone that has autism. One of the things that young Sheldon does correctly that The Big Bang does not is having characters that are super sympathetic towards him. Young Sheldon's mother, who's his closest to him, does not see him as a burden.
There are 5 billion people on this planet, and you're the perfect mom for me. What are the odds of that?
Thank you, Lord, for this little boy.
Nope.
Whereas in The Big Bang Theory, all of his friends treat him as if he's a burden.
What's wrong with it?
Nothing. It's what's wrong with him.
There's no laugh track in Young Sheldon, which allows for the slightly odd things that he does to just be seen as slightly odd things, rather than this insane mockery that it becomes in The Big Bang Theory. The only reason I can think of for why they didn't want Sheldon to be confirmed to be autistic is because in all the characters that are so-called friends that constantly mock him, and even the laugh track from the live audience that constantly laughs at him, would start to feel guilty for treating him that way if he was actually confirmed to be autistic, as in it would be ableist bullying rather than laughing at the weird uptight guy.
Howard dressed up as me and imitated me, and everyone laughed.
Oh, well, that must have felt terrible.
It did. I never realized my friends viewed me as an object of ridicule.
Even though it is unfortunate that he's not confirmed to be autistic, a lot of autistic people really relate to him and find comfort that there is representation of someone just like them in a big mainstream show.
Oh, and telling a joke that, what are you talking about? He said inappropriate things to people because he didn't know they were inappropriate.
There are times where he has a nice sympathetic moment, such as when Penny sees him feeling anxious at his birthday party, and instead of doing the usual ridiculing that she always does, she comforts him.
I don't think I can go back out there.
That's fine. You know, I hate that your sister and her friends used to torture you. What I hate even more is if I was there, I would have tortured you too.
Based on this pep talk, I'd say you're still doing it.
My point is, there was a time I never would have been friends with someone like you, and now you are one of my favorite people. So if what you need is to spend your birthday in a bathroom, I'm happy to do it with you.
Unfortunately, though, these moments are few and far between.
Well, everyone will think I'm weird.
Sweetie, you are weird.
Most of the show revolves around the characters treating him like he's an alien, even making comments saying that he is an alien.
Sheldon will eat an enormous amount of Thai food and split into 2 Sheldons.
On the other hand, I think Sheldon might be the larval form of his species, and someday he'll spin a cocoon and emerge 2 months later with moth wings and an exoskeleton.
The Big Bang Theory normalizes bullying people with autism. Anytime Sheldon does something that they consider to be annoying, weird, they laugh at him, and at Halloween they dress up as him to mock his movement and mimic his body language and expressions. This is unfortunately a very common trope across a lot of the TV shows with autistic coded characters. In The Office, Jim constantly picks on Dwight, and that is seen as the right thing to do because Dwight is seen as annoying, even though most of Dwight's idiosyncrasies are obviously caused by his autism.
That's debatable. There are basically 2 schools of thought.
Fact. Bears eat beets. Oh. Bears. Beets. Battlestar Galactica.
Bears do not... What is going on? What are you doing?
Similarly with Dina from Superstore, another character dresses up as her for Halloween to mock the way she acts.
Shut up, Sandra.
Shut up, Sandra!
So cool, you're gonna be twinsies.
No, we're not.
When research was done on the pupils with autism in schools, the rates of bullying on them was as high as 94%. And when further research was done, over 50% of them stated that they would not disclose the fact they were being bullied and would instead become school leavers as a way of coping with their bullying. This unfortunately doesn't just end at school for most people, it continues on in the workplace as seen in The Office, in Superstore and The Big Bang Theory. Autism continues on into your adult life as well, and so does the bullying. The constant mocking, isolation, and exclusion, and feeling like you've been ostracized from society and that you'll never fit in anywhere, causes such a high depression rate. Studies have shown that autistic adults with learning disabilities are 9 times more likely to die by suicide than the general population, and that over 66% of autistic adults have considered suicide, and autistic children are 28 times more likely to think about or attempt suicide than a neurotypical child. We need to drastically change the way we represent autism. We cannot keep allowing it to be normalized to bully and mock autistic people when the rates of suicide are this high. Even though there are a lot of bad modern examples of autism in media, there are a huge amount of improvements being made in representation. In 2015, Sesame Street brought in their first autistic character, called Julia.
We could be symbolic of every kid that's out there. So we had to pick one lane and go. And when we talk about it on the show, when Big Bird asks Alan, what's autism? Alan answers, well, for Julia, it's this. And that's what's important.
Things just a little different.
I've been preparing for Julia for my whole life. I have a son who has high-functioning autism, and I want to do my best to bring Julia to the world in the best light possible.
If we can help raise awareness in a way that brings children together and there is more empathy and understanding, to me that is huge.
All the right research was done for the creation of the character Julia, but unfortunately Autism Speaks got their hands on it and they ended up once again spreading misinformation. They sent off these 100-day kits, which include a package for parents, to help them understand their child's autism after they just got diagnosed, and they compared the character Julia and everyone else with autism to the grief of losing a child. They also encouraged that parents put their autistic children on a restricted gluten-free and dairy-free diet, even though there's been no scientific evidence to back up that this type of food would help an autistic child, and further restricting an already restricted diet could cause harm to the child. Autism Speaks also goes to say that they're still searching for a cure for autism, even though autistic people themselves are constantly advocating that we don't want a cure and always reiterating the fact that we need to be cured reinforces a negative message that there's something broken about us. Finally, I want to discuss the representation of female autistic characters. When research was first being done about autism, there was false information being spread that only men can have autism. This has since been proven to be incorrect, but most autistic representation still seems to be predominantly white men. It is also still extremely common that autistic women don't get diagnosed until way later in life, or may never even get diagnosed, as women tend to mask better. It has also been proven that women tend to get misdiagnosed quite often, being told that they have social anxiety or BPD when they're actually autistic. It is also common for women's special interests to get overlooked, as they may have more mainstream special interests, unlike men who tend to have the more common special interests that are known for being autistic, such as liking trains. One of the highly praised autistic female representation is Twyla from Monster High Gen 3.
I am autistic, and loudness bothers me.
Twyla is seen as good representation as she is seen using her headphones to accommodate her sensory issues, which is very common for autistic people to do this when the noise is getting too much for them. It's great that she's been able to normalize that. Twyla is still seen to be able to make friends, and she fits in with the friend group. She's seen using her bracelet to stim, which helps her calm herself, and she's seen to use her magical powers to go invisible when she feels overwhelmed, which is a feeling a lot of autistic people can relate to. Another great example of autistic female representation is Norma from Dead End. She is seen to be having a sensory overload when she's in a group setting, and instead of judging her, her friend comforts her and helps her understand that she doesn't need to be like anyone else. She's very good dialogue where she explains how she wishes she could be more like the neurotypical people and socialize like them.
I'm so stupid. No, you're not. Maybe I am full of fear. The life coach spotted it. He shouldn't have said that. I just don't understand how this is easy for everyone. Well, I'm just really good at everything. I mean making friends, socializing. Barney is so good at it. But not me. You're different people, though. Why are you putting so much pressure on yourself?
Which again is something a lot of autistic people related to and felt comforted when they saw it on screen. Finally, I would like to discuss Tina from Bob's Burgers. She is seen in the autistic community as being great autistic representation, even though she is just coded. In the very first episode, her siblings make the joke that she has autism, and the dad claims she doesn't.
But Tina's not good with the customers.
Bob, I'm good with the customers.
Not really.
I'm great with the customers.
She's autistic. She can't help it.
Yeah, I'm autistic.
Bob, just a sec. No, you're not autistic, Tina.
How many toothpicks on the ground?
Don't play this game again.
Come on, look, how many toothpicks?
No, it just involves me cleaning up toothpicks.
100? Bob.
No.
100?
It's 3.
There's 3.
Okay, how many now?
Bob. 3.
No.
Ugh, you're the worst kind of autistic.
You can't even count.
But throughout the show, she's been written with a lot of autistic coded traits. At one point, they have a song that a lot of autistic people have related to and claims that it summarizes perfectly what it feels like to be autistic.
Feels like something's wrong with me and they know it. They took one look my way and exposed it.
Just admit that they are right.
I think it's wonderful that as years have gone on, more representation keeps being created and it's becoming more diverse. It's not just a straight white man anymore. Representation is extremely important for both autistic people to finally feel like they can relate to someone and for neurotypical people so they can feel like they can understand them. In the survey I mentioned previously, I asked the question, what would make autistic representation better in TV? And I got some very interesting answers. The main thing people said was to keep away from organizations such as Autism Speaks and to do a lot more research into autism before writing the characters. People also said that there should be autistic people creating and acting in the show so that the characters portrayed more authentically. People also said that the autism should not be the center point of the character. They need to be fleshed out and given more traits. People also said that they should not be made into bad people or even morally grey people, as there's already enough stigma around autism, so we don't need extra. And finally, to not write them with all the generic stereotypes, as each autistic person is unique. My own work. In my first year of filmmaking, I made a short film called Human for a Day. It was about an alien who was asked to pretend to be human. I used this as a metaphor for masking autism. It was just a fun, silly project that I didn't take too seriously as being a representation of autism. Since creating that project, I felt more passionate about creating characters that represent people in a better way. And for my screenwriting project, I was given the task of writing a 30-page script. I decided to write about a dystopian ableist society, and the main characters of this story have a bunch of varied disabilities, one of which has autism. I tried my best to not make him a stereotype, but still have it be obvious that he does have autism and is trying his hardest to mask it. I did a lot of research when writing these characters to make sure I was doing an accurate portrayal of them. During the summer, I planned on writing a short horror film, and I was originally going to have it with all neurotypical people in the cast. But after doing this dissertation, I felt impassioned and realised how vital it is to have representation in all genres. So I've now decided to make the little girl in the film autistic and nonverbal, as I think it will add a layer of depth to the film, and hopefully showcase the added dangers of being a nonverbal girl. Methodology/meeting the learning outcomes. I chose to do my dissertation in an academic approach, which involves engaging in desk-based research. I gathered all my primary and secondary sources, critically engaged with them, and formed an unbiased argument. I wrote a script to read for my video essay, which is included in the appendices. I did my dissertation on this topic because I felt it's crucial for writers to understand how to write autistic characters. After completing my project, I feel confident that I did this to the best of my ability and successfully answered my topic's question.